You are invited for the next edition of Game Jam Plus.
É criar o próximo grande jogo indie.
I'd like to invite my fellow flyover states and the rest of the world to come jam with us.
Mi nombre es Brian Hernández de Cartago, Costa Rica.
Patos de Minas, Minas Gerais.
Calgary, Canadá.
Goiás,
São Luís,
Iran,
Liga Sul de Minas,
Portugal,
Brasília, México, Salvador,
Maquedônia.
Uberaba, Minas Gerais.
São José, Costa Rica.
Uberlândia,
La Paz, Bolivia.
Manaus, Amazonas,
United States Midwest.
Atlanta,
Slovenia.
Engenheiro Paulo de Frontin.
Game Jam Plus? O que é Game Jam Plus?
En donde desarrolladores, músicos, artistas podrán crear su propio juego con un enfoque de negocios.
Participants from all around the world come together.
É o local onde suas ideias tomam forma.
Y me complace mucho invitarlos a este gran evento.
I feel thrilled and blessed to have such an opportunity to be a part of this.
And I want you to unlock this achievement too.
Que es un evento internacional que va a tomar lugar del 8 al 10 de octubre.
from October 8 to 10.
Entre el 8 y el 10 de octubre.
Dias 8 ao dia 10 de outubro.
This October, from the 8th to the 10th.
Dia 8 ao dia 10 de outubro.
Quiero invitarlos a formar parte de esta gran comunidad internacional.
It's going to be an incredible opportunity to make some games, meet some amazing people.
Espero haber más personas de todo el mundo participando de este gran evento.
Hope to see you there.
Participa, be our plus one.
Would you be our plus one?
Visit наш plus event.
Be a plus one.
Будете мой плюс один.
Be our plus one.
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 Join us, be our plus one.
Be our plus one.
Yeah, that's it. Beer plus one. Remember that we are open for registrations. And now we are going to keep our warm up with this lot of amazing talks and panels. I don't know if you are watching all of them. Since I'm on the backstage, I'm kind of listening to everything. And there are plenty of amazing content. So no more waiting. We today are going to have someone very special. He's going to make an amazing, really amazing talk about AAA to indie. So please come to the stage, Eduardo. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Very good, very good. First, I want to thank you for the invite. I'm very honored. Oi, pessoal do Brasil. Eu estou muito honrado com o convite de poder estar falando em português para a audiência, mas eu vou fazer a apresentação em inglês. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining from everywhere, and let's see what let's see what I have.
Let's see what you have to say. I'm going to leave the stage all for you. See you later.
Thank you. Hi. Well, what I'd like to say is when I first received the invite for this, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey through the games industry. I've been in the games industry for 15 years, and I've started in indie. I had a short stint in indie, then I joined the AAA industry where I stayed for quite a while, and now I'm back in the indie since March 2020. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Eduardo Halsov. I use the pronouns he, him, and I've been in games industry for 15 years. I graduated as a bachelor's in communication for image and sound at Universidade Federal de São Carlos, now FSCar. Woohoo, FSCar. And I moved to the UK in 2005 to pursue a career in game development. I really wanted to work in console games, and so I felt that moving abroad was the easiest way to get to it. But it wasn't easy at all. Like my first round of job applications when I arrived at the UK, I applied for about 50 different companies. I sent CVs everywhere to people that had job offers, companies that had jobs, and companies that didn't, like speculative letters and whatnot. I got a bunch of nice rejection letters, and some and some of them just met with silence. So, and that's pretty. I guess that's pretty normal when you're starting. Um, my money was running off, so I started working in retail while I was still pursuing the career of game development, still applying to any jobs that were available out there. And after a lot of pestering a indie studio in Brighton, I joined Red Bedlam. That was my first company, and they were working on a project called Roma Victor, and was an indie MMO set in Roman Britain. And I worked with Red Bedlam for a year and a half in all sorts of different capacities. I did from 3D modeling to UI design and programming to procedurally place trees on all of the game space, even before I knew what the word procedure was. So did level design as well, a little programming because the UI had needed programming as well. So I did a bunch of things there. And after that, I got managed to get an interview at Lionhead Studios. And to join Lionhead, they wanted someone that could program in Lua, and someone that had a background in movies, on cinema, film and media, and that could program in Lua. And I had my bachelor's degree in image and sound, which met those requirements. So I applied, and I got an interview. I was super chuffed. But I didn't know Lua at all. Lua, for whoever doesn't know, is a programming language that that is developed in Brazil. Actually, like, it was developed by PUC-Rio, I think. And it's a really popular scripting language for games. It has been used, I think, in WoW, like Blizzard used it extensively. And I think Lua is the backbone of some of the scripting tools at Ubisoft as well. Like, as a level designer at Ubisoft, you don't do scripting in Lua, but the node scripting that you do gets converted into Lua scripts. Like, it's a very flexible and versatile language. But I didn't know any of it, so I went into. I had a PSP, like a PlayStation Portable, and I had a Lua interpreter there. Like, don't tell anyone, but oh, this is live, I guess. But I had a homebrew, like a root-kitted PSP, because I wanted to program in it. And I made a little choose your own adventure game that I brought to the interview at Lionhead. And I think that that's sort of what got me the job, because I came in with a prototype, like a playable prototype, and they saw, well, I think he can do the job. And that was that. Like, I started working at Fable 2, which felt like a dream, and it felt like a dream for 2 years. And like, I was always starstruck when I saw Peter Molyneux going up and down the studio, and eventually got to work closely with him as well, and it was a really, really big honor. And then in 2011, when I was working in Fable: The Journey, I got a call from Ubisoft to come to Canada. They had just opened the studio in Toronto, and they were growing very fast, and they wanted someone to do cinematic scripting. And then I joined Ubisoft Toronto, where I've been for the past 8 years. And now in 2020, as Watch Dogs was wrapping up, I decided that it was time for me to go back to those indie origins, and then I founded Peculiar Path, and to work on system and story-driven games, and with a big focus on non-violent mechanics. in this sort of time that we have together, I want to tell you the key difference about a career in AAA and one indie, and from my perspective, right? Like it's from what I have observed as a person. There's no big research or anything like that. This is I'm talking about from personal experience. Um, so they're not exclusive of each other, right? Like you can go from indie to AAA and AAA to back to indie, and you can move in between the industries. But when you're starting, I think making a choice as to where you really want to be working on, what type of game that you want to be working, puts you way ahead of the competition, rather than someone that just I would work on anywhere, like knowing what kind of professional the games industry, like the AAA industry and the indie industry, are looking for, will put you ahead of the competition. So, and the answer is simple. The AAA is looking for specialists, and indie is looking for generalists. Thank you. That's it. No, I'm joking. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what I mean by that. And why is the difference important? If you look, this is from gamejobs.co. If you look at the website gamejobs.co, which I think is an aggregator, like it sort of crawls the web and looks for jobs in the games industry. The experience level that is listed there, you can see that the vast majority is divided between senior and intermediate. And then intermediate, it's usually someone with 3+ years of experience. And you see the little tiny sliver for junior, and that's a little bit problematic, right? Like, how can you get that experience? How can you join the industry if you can't get a job, right? Like if there are no jobs out there. But this means, that you have to be able, as a junior, to impress people enough to join the industry almost as an intermediate, like to be able to apply to those intermediate jobs. Or you need to gather that experience in some sort of way, because your college and university experience is not really going to count. Like if you did an internship at a company, if you worked at a studio, if you have a track record of working on a job, that it like on a company and a game that shipped or not, that will count. So you have to find ways to get that experience, or to really impress in your CV. Another big difference that is important to highlight between the AAA and indie is that AAA has massive teams, right? Like the roles are super well defined, so they're looking for the best specialists on their fields, and that's where that big difference comes in. So if you're a concept artist, if you're an artist, for instance, you're a concept artist, the only studios will only want you to produce the most amazing concepts at a fast speed and great quality. So you really have to have your craft and your skills sharp, very, very sharp, to work as a specialist, because each one of the roles is so well defined. So much that like a concept artist it's likely in AAA is likely never going to touch the game editor. And indie, that is different, right? Like indie has small teams in comparison, so you will never you'll have to wear many hats, and it's necessary that you need to be able to do all of the aspects of your job. So if you're an artist, like you need to be able to do concept and modeling and integrate those assets in the level, and do the environment art as well, and the particle effects. And so you need to be able to craft that skill as a whole. which means you can't be really a specialist at a concept art, for instance. This so this, when I say generalist and specialist, I'm not talking about someone that can code and design and do art and animate and do everything in that kind of generalist sense, but more of a generalist in your own field. So you still work in an indie, you still want to be an amazing artist. Is that you just have to spread that skill of art into many aspects of that department. So another example is like, let's say if you're a game designer. This is a little list of not all of the specialist roles of game design in AAA, right? Like you can be a gameplay designer where you're designing how the player moves around the world, how they interact with the world, what kind of game mechanics they are. Or you can be a specialist combat designer that it's only dealing with how the player attacks creatures and how creatures attack player, that kind of stuff. UI, economy and progression, monetization, especially for mobile, but today the monetization is a big aspect of all game. So understanding economy and understanding how those mechanics keep player engaged and keep playing, spending money in the game. It's all part of a specific game design role, and in indie, sometimes you have to be a little bit of all of those things when you're working. Art as well. It's, as I said, is concept art and 3D modeling, pixel art, 2D art, environment art, and tech artists. Tech artist is a interesting role, I find, because in India, tech artists will be likely have all of the skills of a necessary for an artist to perform well in the environment, to be able to do the modeling, shaders, and character rigging and prop modeling and environment art. And as a tech artist in AAA, you're responsible for VFX, for making sure that the art that the artists are producing, it's going to perform well in the game, that they are not putting too many polygons in there and going to tank performance in certain areas of the level. So you're going to be responsible for some of those aspects. But yeah, it's a person that sort of joins those two skills, the technical art and the art of it, and someone that is able to sort of translate direction or translate art intention into something playable in the game. And I have tremendous admiration for tech artists. Like they have to be math genius and artists, and at the same time, it's not a it's not an easy skill to have. Animation, it's another example where if you're animating and you're rigging a character, for instance, rigging is a role in its own. You won't be animating, you'll simply putting bones in characters. And if you're animating, you're just animating. Like most of the times you're not even bringing that animation into the game. That was part of my role at the beginning at Ubisoft, where I had a team of cinematic scripters, and what we did is get the work of the animators in the engine and make sure that everything was connected and the cinematics would play. So we would assemble the scenes and assemble all of the animations that were being masterfully tweaked, and it was all motion capture data by the talented animators in the team. And the team would make these scenes, and we ended up making 185 minutes of cinematics for Splinter Cell. And I did that for for Assassin's Creed Unity as well. But yeah, so it's a lot of specialities, and when you're working in indie, you'll need to have those skills, um, eh, knowing how it works in a holistic manner, like so, and especially knowing how to make it so uh, you have time to produce all the assets, and you make that because of you have a reduced resources. Programming, some examples of the areas of programming: gameplay, AI, UI, audio. In engine, for instance, there is one particular type of engine programmer, which is an animation programmer, who deals with a really low level aspects of animation, like how do you compress the animation data to perform well and still fit on the disc when you have 180 minutes of cinematic to fit on a game disc. And DevOps, which are creating all of the builds, the editor builds and the playable builds, and making sure that that pipeline, that workflow of daily updates with the work that everyone checks in keeps coming to everyone in the studio. And production. So production, they like everyone have a career path, and but while it's in a department itself, so I'll take care of organizing every single department out there. So you have to be a people person and very very organized. I feel like it's possibly hard to be a specialist coming in as a, but that's just my observation, not a speculation. So you come in as a producer, so you have all the understanding of the basic skills that a producer. You have your production methodologies. You know about Agile, Scrum, Waterfall, and you know where and when they apply best. When you come in to work in the studio, you're going to be assigned a team as a coordinator. You're going to be assigned a team to work with. So you're going to be, let's say, if you come in and work with the art team, you're going to be assigning, managing the requests from all of the other departments for assets that need to be made, and putting them in the backlog and organizing and knowing when each thing has to be at each stage, and making sure that everyone is delivering on the quest, so on the tasks. And so you're going to start getting a lot of insight of how that profession or how that department works. So you tend to sort of create a lot of specialization on the floor, right? Like, and then you become outsourcing manager because you understand all of the art pipelines, or you become a localization because you've worked closely with the narrative department and know when the scripts have to be locked, when your dialogues need to be recorded, and etc. etc. And in the indie team, you kind of have to do it all, and very likely you have to do some biz dev as well, where you're going to be talking to to vendors or to publishers and to other distributors. Like you're going to be making sure that your game has your Steam page, and that you're getting ready for submitting to Microsoft and having your certification and whatnot. And quality management, because I think it's important to say this is a really big part of development, and they're the unsung heroes of game development: QA, QC, and dev testers. I love working with testers, they are generally the most passionate members of game development, and they are ones that know the game inside out better than anyone on the team, know all of its problems, and very, very often have really good insight on how to make it better, but they have a sort of little axes to actually make it so they have their tools of creating issues and making sure that these issues are visible. So QA controls the quality in general, and very often are external to the team. They are at the studio level, making sure that all of the game is marking all of the check boxes for quality from a studio perspective. And then QC is testing the bugs and testing the final products as the player would play, and also logging bugs that a player would see. And if you have come across a bug in a game, it is 99.99% chance that it was flagged during development, and it just not made the cut to make. I think most games have. Well, it depends on the size, but I've worked in games with like numbers of 10,000s of bugs, right? And sometimes they're duplicate, but a lot of the times they're not. Like, so you're going and fixing hundreds and hundreds of bugs to get the game to a certain state, and then there are bugs that have higher priority and bugs that have lower priority. A QC member will understand what those priorities are and what severity these bugs. For instance, a crash, a bug that makes a game crash, that's a high severity one, and they always manage to flag them. But when you put the game out in the wild with tons of people with different PC specs and whatnot, then a lot more of these things sort of appear as well. And then there's the dev testers, which are embedded in the teams. This is a thing. This was a thing that at Ubisoft that I really liked. Like we're working on level design, and we have dev testers that are specifically assigned to level design. So they have a specific area and to focus on. So they are flagging bugs specific to your team, and sometimes they're flagging things, minutes after you checked it in, like some bug and broken stuff, and you can go in and quickly fix because they're working on the team. Sometimes they do the process of validating your changes, validating that what you made is not going to break the game, and before you even check it in. And that was a really big process. And then there's certification and compliance, where like all of the platforms will ask you what a list of requirements that you have to be able to sort of pass that the test and go into release on the platform. So they call it sometimes like XRs and cert or and that's also a specialization within the test the test field, the quality management field. So there is a career there, but I also have seen a lot of testers come in and then change careers and go into level design or design. So how do you prepare yourself to get your CV there, to get your CV looked at? Sometimes like in indie, all the CVs have to be looked at from the people in the team. So it's a different process. So there's very likely that your CV is going to get looked at, but they will get hundreds of applications and don't have the time or resource to sort of like address individual ones. For AAA, there's a team dedicated to that, right? Like there's a team of recruiters also dedicated to filtering those applications and then showing it to the team. So if and that's the first step to getting an interview. So if you go past the recruiter, then the next step, which is probably not going to be visible to you as an applicant, is that your CV is going to be put in front of the team, and usually uh, for a level design role at UB, I'd get 10 CVs that I'd looked at and pick 3 or 4 for an interview, depending on how good they were, and that is already filtered from the 100 or 200 applications. I don't know what that number would actually be, but there's already a process of trying to match skills with the requirements of the job. So how do you prepare yourself? I think first you need to make a choice, right? Like you need to make a choice of where are you likely to be happier working in? Do you and what motivates that choice? Like, do you want to work in AAA? Do you want to work in huge studios with hundreds and or sometimes thousands of people in the same working in the same game? Or do you really want to work on a smaller team and have more ownership about your of your role, but at the same time be strapped for resources and have to make compromises to your vision sometimes? And so you have to understand what kind of options are there for you there. But once you make that choice, or either go for depth of specializing in a skill, yeah, as I mentioned many times, uh, if you want to do concept art, then just throw yourself really into concept art, rather than the full spectrum. But if you want to work on an indie, maybe spread that time into knowing how to concept and then model, texture, bring the things into substance and bring the things into the engine and see your game ready assets in the game. Or if you're a modeler, just model, like, make really really good models. Um, and so it's important as well to understand what's in demand in the industry. Like, I think this is a thing that can help you uh, get ahead, but I wouldn't put that in front of what you really want to do, because I think even if the uh, concept art market is saturated, I don't know if that's true. I'm just making a example. And you really want to do concept art, then you have to do concept art. I think that if you really, that's what you're. Right. Okay. I think my headphones ran out of battery. I'm talking too much. And so you understand what is on demand on the industry, but don't put that ahead in of your own volition to work in the games. Understand what they're looking for on the people, on the roles that you're applying to. Understand what kind of tests you'll be required to take. It's sort of a common practice now, especially in AAA. If you want to get a job, you do a test. I've seen this in many different roles, especially if it's a very like hot role, something that they are looking for, something really specific from people. They'll brief you and then ask, okay, so can you make me a level uh, in Far Cry, right? Like, oh, just choose your engine, choose your assets, but give me a level design for a specific Far Cry Outpost, for instance, and you have a brief, and then everyone submits, and then you look at the people that really sort of have the all of this process, all the steps in there. That is a good thing to understand what the processes are. So if you're doing a level design, if it's blueprint, and then you do your white block, and then you do your logic and in your enemy spawns, if you're making a combat-driven game, or if you're an artist, like how you gather your reference, how you put that together, like understanding that process and documenting that process is something that makes for a good test. The other thing that you can do is seek mentorship, but I wouldn't make that the first thing you do, right? Like, I think you should do your homework first, right? A mentor can guide you to improve your work and take it to the next level. But it's very hard to work when you don't have any with a blank slate, right? Like, so if you first thing you're doing is contacting someone and to teach you how to do environment art, like you reaching out to industry veterans, and I tell you, like, all industry veterans will be happy to offer you mentorship if you do your homework first. If you come in and say, hey, look, I have this environment design, can you please give me some feedback on it? And I think there's a lot of people, I'm not going to say the majority, but I'm not going to say most of them, but there's a lot of people that are happy to give you some time and guide you through the process, whatever role that is. And in the having an holistic understanding of your field, and show that you can perform autonomously, because that's probably one of the big things that it's different from AAA in indie, is the level of autonomy that is going to be required from you in any role. So what studios are looking for, first, when you're doing an interview, right? So first, they're looking to know if you can do it, right? Like, you showed you have signs of that you understand the area and that you have the right skill sets, and you know the right tools to perform the job. That's the first thing. They want to know if you have done it before and what the capacity of that was. And the one of the things is that this would be very surprising, I guess. I don't know. Well, I don't know how surprising it is, but do you want the job, right? It's I had many interviews with people that just didn't want the job. They never said that they want the job, but it was clear that they weren't excited about it. They weren't excited about the company. They weren't excited about the projects that the company had. So they're coming in without that excitement, that sparkle in the eye, and the and sometimes that translates to like being a little bit nervous because you're so excited. But I'd rather in an interview calm someone down and go like, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. You can talk, and so we can chat, and then actually really see if they can do the job. And then but if they have the attitude of going like, oh, no, I don't want. And I have, like, personally, I have failed interviews myself, that I got there and I was like, I realized that I really didn't want the job. And even though I put my best foot forward, that comes across in the interview. Like, unless you're a really good performer, you that sense that you want the job is something that really comes across when you're interviewing, and it'll count. It'll make sure. and common skills that you'll be asked about are your ability to take feedback, like soft skills. You know, how are you working with people? Your ability to take feedback. Have you worked on a team before? Have you had any conflict with someone in the team? How did you resolve the conflict? How well do you listen? You know, and again, do you have a positive attitude? Like those things really come through in an interview, and even those questions come through in an interview very very often. And in AAA, it'll be the ability to listen to feedback, take direction, knowing how to bring your issues up and diplomatically solve them within the team and with upper management as well, and a strong portfolio in your area. It doesn't matter where you want. Like you either have a big CV with companies you can talk at length about the things that you've done in an interview, or your portfolio has to shine. You have games and you can show them. You have art and you can show it. And in yeah, as an indie, you have to be able to show that you are autonomous and also to some degree a self-taught, like self-learner, like that you won't be stuck in a like you get to a problem and you'll be able to overcome that problem by learning, by going out, because sometimes you won't be able to solve a problem within the studio. You won't be able to figure out, like no one will be able to guide you. Growing within indie, without growing without a mentor is hard, right? Like, so if you're junior artists and there are no other senior artists in the team, it's harder to sort of grow. So you need to be able to seek that mentorship, sometimes outside the studio or with other peers, and get that feedback and improve. And it has to be something that is a lot more self-driven than driven by your requests or performance reviews that happen in a corporate world. Although, like, being self-driven is a thing that is valuable in any scenario. Now, experience, when you're talking about the levels of experience, right? Junior, intermediate, senior, and beyond, right? Like, what really are people looking for when they're looking at the CVs in AAA? So a junior is usually someone with 0 to 3 years of experience, and as you said, there are not a lot of as you saw, there are not a lot of job offers for entry level positions out there, which is a problem. Like, the industry should fix that. We should studio heads, we should create those positions for graduates, because there's a lot of talent coming out of if I had half the skill, or like a quarter of the skill of the people coming out of education universities and colleges today, when I joined, it'd be like a completely different scenario. Like, the quality of the competition out there is fierce. Like, there is a lot of people and a lot of great people coming out, like, fresh from school, and we should really give them a chance. And once you ramped up on the team, then you become an intermediate, and that means you are now performing at an autonomous level. As a junior, you're learning and you're given tasks, and maybe you don't know how to do the tasks, and that's okay, and someone will teach you how to do it, and then you do it. At intermediate, you're expected to be a level of autonomy. So anything between 1 and 5 years of experience, you can find intermediates in. And once you ramped up on the tools and processes and have demonstrated that your contributions need less guidance, then you probably be moved to an intermediate position. And obviously, you have to fight for that too within a within a corporate environment, right? Like, you have to go after that that level increase. That yeah, and so but you're expected to perform autonomously. And as a senior, you can have two paths there. You have the leadership manager path and the expert slash principal path, where you be managing, like the lead, you'll be managing a team, helping organize tasks and schedules, as well as performing as a senior in your own field. And that's going to be about 50% of your work. Expect lots of meetings and still be expected to deliver on your own tasks. But at this time, you're probably the one assigning your own tasks. So you're the one that decides what you are going to work on. And don't do it like me. Don't assign don't assign really hard stuff for yourself. Like, assign the easier stuff for yourself, and let your more senior competent people take the hard stuff, because managing people takes a lot of effort. And you do a service to your team if you have the ability to focus on that. It's very easy to sort of get trapped into, and I made that mistake many times, and I probably will still make that mistake, because it's very easy to not realize that you're doing it, is put yourself down and head down into a very complex task, and emerge days later with everyone just going, oh my gosh. And then as an expert, you be expected to be a shining star in your department, mentoring people and executing like top quality work with and very efficiently, right? Causing little problems for people. But be realistic, right? Like, when you're applying, just be realistic where you are in your point of your career, because that honesty will come through, right? Like, if you don't have the experience, don't go and say, oh, I have 3 years of experience, because we can read in the CV that you don't, right? Like, so it's easier to come in as a junior, if you're being honest, than trying to sort of make up for that with smoke and mirrors, so we can see through. Now you made it. So what do you expect once you landed your dream job, or at least put your foot through the door? As a junior in AAA, as a junior, intermediate, or senior member, you'll likely have little control over the bigger creative decisions in the project. I'm not saying that you don't have influence. I'm not saying that you don't have contribution, because that's not true. Like, you can make your contribution as big as you really want, but the final say, it's usually not in your hands. So, and you'll be expected to serve. Work with directions, even if that direction goes against what you think it's the right thing to do, and that's just the nature of the work. You need to be able to buy into the overall vision, because if you're going in a direction that it's not the direction that everyone is going to, you might as well not be in the role as a senior that you are. And in indie, well, the problem there is that you don't have a huge resource pile, so you need to be very good at making the decisions in your own field that will allow you to make the game with the amount of resources that you have, and have a big impact. Know knowledge that the impact of your decisions create work for other other teams. So if you decide to put this amazing sequence, you're a level designer, you decide to put this amazing sequence where a building collapses, and your engine or your workflows have not being prepared for collapsing buildings, that's not the type of game, and you just want a cool moment, you have created problems for the programming department, for the VFX and work. So you have to be mindful of that, and all of these decisions need to be made kind of together, and knowing what you can do and what the scope of the game is really important. And this is super hard because everyone wants to make the most cool things that they can, coolest things that they can. So for the game jam, I guess you will likely function as an indie studio. So I think one of the important things for to sort of highlight is that you need to assemble your team with the complementary roles, right? Like a team made of an artist and a writer, and it'll likely not get a great playable game at the end of the day. And at the same level, a programmer and a designer will also struggle if they don't have an artist or a writer to uh, uh, to make that game shine, right? So make sure you cover your bases depending on the game you're making. But the trio art, programming, design is usually a good start. Like cover your bases, make sure you cover your bases, that you not have this gap that you and also make sure that everyone is in sync to what you're doing. The skills here you're going to need is rapid prototyping. You're going to be able to understand how to get to a fun playable very quickly, and that is super hard. But that is probably going to be the most important thing, taking the game jam. Thank you so much. I have almost spent all the time that I had, but thank you, and I'm happy to sort of take questions. And I hope that you found this informative as well, that sort of illuminated a little bit of what the two sort of career paths are. Like when I joined the industry personally, I had very little information on this. Like I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went, right? Like I really didn't know how specialized the people in AAA were, and how amazing everyone is. And so it was a humbling experience to sort of get in there. And now becoming an indie developer again is a humbling experience as well, because I am relearning a lot of skills and learning new ones. Although I love to learn, so I'm sort of in my element. All right, thanks so much. Um, if anyone wants to reach out to me, yeah, I took out the presentation, but I can just sort of bring it back the last 4 minutes if and let's go again and just there you go. So if you'd like to follow me on our peculiar path on the Twitter, which is the company that I founded. Let's look at the chat.
So
all right.
I could manage to drawing it. For those who saw yesterday, my internet was dropping on the ending, and now it happened again because my internet has a perfect timing. So Eduardo, thank you for coming with us. I think your talk was really interesting on the point that you said details about about the professions there is in game industry, it is important for people to not think only as indie developers. I myself kind of hate to work with graphic design, but then I learned that I could work with art without being a graphic designer. I could work with concept, I could work with animation, I could work with a lot of things. There are many people that likes one specific part of a profession, and even here in Brazil, some companies have this specific hiring areas. It's pretty nice the way you brought it because it was so full of examples. It was so easy to understand. It means that we learned our way through the gaming industry life, and you just put it in so easy words.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's all things I picked up along the way, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important to bring it, even for our gamers to understand. On a game jam, there is no such a thing as someone specifically for the rigging, someone specifically for the animation, someone specifically for the art. No, it's more like a 4 to 5 people teams, and they have to do what they have. But games are not actually how the industry looks like. It's important to have this mentality.
Yeah, they do make some of the most amazing content though. Like I remember back in Lionhead, we had a creative day. It was a day that everybody took to do a creative project, and then we would present to the team, to the entire team. It was a game jam basically, and it was like it was one day, but really people worked for many more days around it. Like it was usually like some more like a week or something. And then we would bring and present these projects to everyone. It was so much fun because we also brought people from different roles that would and then end up doing things that they haven't done in other departments, so learn a little bit about that. So yeah, game jams are really cool. It's a really cool way of building team spirit, and is a really good way of building an actual show portfolio that you can show, right? Like the result of your game jam can vary. Like if you can manage to put it on somewhere that people can have easy access to it. um, I when I get an application and there is, oh, I made this game and I made this game, and make sure that I go through and play all of these, like, and I worked on this game jam, and I'm able to sort of say what kind of area I did and what my contribution in the project was. It's really it's really good. Yeah.
It's interesting. And also companies sometimes looks for people who have this sort of experience. Like, oh, I worked on this gen and I made this process to decide how we were going to make, how we were going to balance the game. And those are skills for a game designer, for example.
Yep. All right.
All right. So just a highlight, a specific comment for Lucas Mello.
Okay.
He said that people worry too much about having years of experience, but it's not about that. It's just put in the work and it will show.
Yeah, I think what the question is yeah, if you're say you want to be a modeler, you will need to show that you can model. Like, so having a strong portfolio, like having all of the pieces, and for AAA, like having really nice finished pieces, and for indie, being able to show the process that you go through. Like all of these things are important, right? Like being able to say, hey, here, this was the concept that I went to, this was the reference gathering, or like this, and this was the modeling process, this is how I broke up the UVs, see how neatly they are packed, and here's the texture, I did the texture in substance, or I painted, or whatever, like depending on the process. Like knowing that process and being able to show that process is really important, I think, in a portfolio, especially for indie, for AAA, having those amazing pieces, and being able to show that a little bit about the process, but show like the final pieces. Like work in progress is fine, but you do have to have some key work there that is like, hey, this is my best work, and put your best work forward, and it needs to be multiple pieces, right? Like there is a lot of ArtStation portfolios out there. There are 1 or 2 pieces. I've seen like many great ones, like there is one piece, but then you don't know how flexible the artist is, or how can they navigate different styles, or if they have a very strong style from a specific type of art, and that that's what but Lucas is right. Like if you put in the work, and that work, and you have something to show for, that will go a long way, especially on getting that first break in. It's being able to show that you can tick the boxes that they have. And that experience, like it might be a little bit more difficult to go through the recruiters, but because usually you get screened on the CV, right? Like a lot of recruiters will go and look at the CV. The good ones will go look at the CV, then look at the portfolios as well, and then go like, actually, I got recruited at Lionhead because I had a really good recruiter. Like I applied to a different job than the one I got. Like I applied to be a UI, because I was doing UI for the indie game, I applied to be a UI artist. But because of the list of skills that I had there, being able to script and being able to and having my education in film and media, whatever, then that meant that they looked at the CV and go like, look, you apply for this job, but it looks like you could do this one. And it turns out that the job that he offered me, the scripter job, that he said, well, that's the role. I'm like, that is my dream role. Like I applied to the UI art because I'm trying to get my foot into making consoles, right? Games for consoles. And but yes, like, so it was but I had to prove it. Like I feel like that I have to prove that I can do this job, and then did it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and it worked. You showed one job that you could do, and also others that you could do, and they found it. And here you are.
Yeah. And so I wish everyone a great Game Jam Plus. I can't wait to see all the games that come out of it.
We sure are going to have amazing things. So thank you for coming, Eduardo. It was amazing.
Thank you so much.
I think that's it. So see you on the next warm-up.
See you. Bye.
You are invited for the next edition of Game Jam Plus.
É criar o próximo grande jogo indie.
I'd like to invite my fellow flyover states and the rest of the world to come jam with us.
Mi nombre es Brian Hernández de Cartago, Costa Rica.
Patos de Minas, Minas Gerais.
Calgary, Canada.
Goiás.
São Luís.
Iran.
Liga Sul de Minas.
Portugal.
Brasília.
México.
Salvador.
Maquedônia.
Uberaba, Minas Gerais.
São José, Costa Rica.
Uberlândia.
La Paz, Bolívia.
Manaus, Amazônia.
United States Midwest.
Atlanta,
Eslovenia.
Engenheiro fala Francinho.
Game Jam Plus? O que é Game Jam Plus?
En donde desarrolladores, músicos, artistas podrán crear su propio juego con un enfoque de negocios.
Participants from all around the world come together.
É o local onde suas ideias tomam forma.
Y me complace mucho invitarlos a este gran evento.
I feel thrilled and blessed to have such an opportunity to be a part of this.
And I want you to unlock this achievement too.
que es un evento internacional que va a tomar lugar del 8 al 10 de octubre.
From October 8th to 10th.
Entre el 8 y el 10 de octubre.
Dias 8 ao dia 10 de outubro.
This October, from the 8th to the 10th.
Dia 8 ao dia 10 de outubro.
Quiero invitarlos a formar parte de esta gran comunidad internacional.
It's going to be an incredible opportunity to make some games, meet some amazing people.
Espero haber más personas de todo el mundo participando de este gran evento.
Hope to see you there.
Participa, be our plus one.
Would you be our plus one?
Be a plus one.
Будете мой плюс N.
Be our plus one.
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 Join us, be our plus one.
Be our plus one.